So how are you going to operate with less, even though we didn't even have enough to begin with?
Well, it depends on what the priorities are from the past administration, but in this
Are
administration...
inspections not priorities?
They are priorities to protect the
But with
American
less
worker.
inspectors, you can't do investigations.
What we don't want to do is weaponize the use of those funding dollars.
What we just witnessed is a classic example of the clash between political posturing and the realities of governing. Representative Ilhan Omar pressed Secretary Lois Chavez de Rima with forceful statistics, frequent interruptions, and pointed challenges aimed at framing the debate in her favor. However, the secretary remained composed throughout the exchange, responding steadily despite the confrontational tone. It's a compelling case study in staying calm under scrutiny while addressing tough and provocative questions. We'll also take a closer look at the claims surrounding the alleged OSHA cuts and examine whether the narrative holds up when measured against the available facts.
Thank you, Madam Secretary, for being here with us and watching the hearing earlier. I learned that you're also a former union member.
Well, my father was a Teamster.
Yes. Okay. All right. I'm a former AFSCME member. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the child labor enforcement. In two appropriations hearings last month, you expressed a firm commitment to fighting illegal child labor. At the same time, your agency has decimated ILAP, including its work to prevent child labor. Your budget proposal will weaken a historically under-resourced wage and hour division. The nominee to be your solicitor of labor wrote a chapter in Project 2025, which literally calls for the rolling back of child labor laws. Madam Secretary, can you assure this committee that you will not propose any rollbacks of child labor rules that prevent children from being employed in hazardous occupations?
I commit to fighting against all child labor exploitation. Absolutely, in this country, we do not want to exploit our children. Consistent with putting the American worker first, the budget does streamline ILAB, that is one of the agency departments that protect the American worker and protect against child labor violations. The budget provides for about $70 million to ILAB, including $38 million in grant funding, while restoring ILAB's emphasis on putting the American worker first.
So that's a long way of you saying yes?
I will work absolutely to combat all child labor.
Wonderful. Many workers across the country will feel the impacts of your staffing and funding cuts to WHD and OSHA. As of May 2025, WHD employs just 611 investigators nationwide. This is the lowest number since at least 1973, even though there are nearly 10 times as many workers and businesses for them to cover. Your budget proposal cutting the office by $25 million, with staffing projected to fall. Your budget would also cut OSHA inspectors by over 12%, even though currently it will take 185 years to inspect every workplace just once. Madam Secretary, what is the plan to keep workers safe when you're slashing enforcement?
Yeah, no, thank you again. Again, one of the overall core missions is to protect the American worker, and that includes in the wage and hour division as well. And while we are streamlining and doing some cost saving for the American taxpayer, we will always be in compliance with our statutory requirements.
Well, that doesn't, Madam Secretary, if I can just interrupt for 1 second. At one point, DOGE was set to close 20 WHD field offices and 11 OSHA offices. If this is happening, how will this protect workers?
So the offices that we have been, that were originally proposed through GSA, we have worked with to bring them online. I don't think that that is a good use of the compliance issue, that we have to protect the American worker. And through the DRP, none of our essential workers, either through wage and hour, through OSHA, through MSHA, were able to take those because we know we need those investigators on the ground to protect the American worker, and I advocated for that.
Yeah, but having fewer investigators and inspectors will not protect workers from wage theft, misclassification, and dangerous working conditions. So how are you going to operate with less, even though we didn't even have enough to begin with?
Well, it depends on what the priorities are from the past administration, but in this
Are
administration...
inspections not priorities?
They are priorities to protect the
But with
American
less
worker.
inspectors, you can't do investigations.
What we don't want to do is weaponize the use of those funding dollars against...
How is there weaponization if it's going to take you 187 years to complete inspections and you're cutting the inspectors that are supposed to do those inspections? The math is not mathing.
Well, statutorily, we will protect the American worker. We did not have any of our investigators currently. We're not able to take the DRP in order so that they can be assigned to the job that they are required to do.
So are you saying that you're going to hire more investigators to do inspections?
What I'm saying is we did not allow our statutorily mandated offices that we need essential workers like our investigators through wage and hour, through MSHA, and through OSHA to take the DRP because they are essential to protecting the American worker in these industries. We can still cost save and do the job that we need to do.
So American workers can expect that you will expedite investigations to make sure that we are assuring their safety.
American workers can expect that the Department of Labor will protect the American worker as that is a core mission of the Department of Labor.
Right from the start, Representative Ilhan Omar sets a sharp tone. She references the secretary's background as a former union member, but instead of feeling like common ground, it comes across more like a strategic lead-in to tougher criticism. Secretary Chavez de Rima, however, doesn't engage emotionally. She keeps her responses measured and professional. The conversation then shifts to child labor and Project 2025, a topic that has become a major flashpoint in political debates. Omar presses the secretary on whether she will protect children, attempting to connect broader policy proposals to immediate workplace safety concerns. Chavez de Rima responds with a more detailed explanation about budget restructuring and improving efficiency within the Department of Labor. Before she can fully expand on that point, Omar interjects with, "So that's a long way of saying yes." That moment is telling. Rather than allowing for nuance, the exchange becomes about tightening the response into a headline-ready soundbite. The secretary's argument appears to be that reforming or streamlining an agency isn't the same as weakening it, that throwing more money at a system doesn't automatically produce better results. But Omar's framing suggests that reductions or restructuring equal harm to worker protections. Then there's the statistic about it taking 185 years to inspect every workplace and the claim that the number of investigators is at its lowest point since the 1970s. Omar uses this to argue that OSHA is under-resourced. The secretary, meanwhile, signals concern about federal spending levels and the size of the bureaucracy, implying that smarter deployment of resources may matter more than simply increasing headcount. The most pivotal moment comes when Chavez de Rima says the department should avoid weaponizing funding. Omar questions that characterization. The secretary's implication seems to be that excessive regulatory authority or politically driven enforcement can burden certain industries disproportionately. In her framing, fiscal restraint and oversight reforms are about protecting taxpayers and preventing regulatory overreach, not dismantling worker protections. Omar, on the other hand, paints a stark picture of potential consequences: unsafe workplaces, vulnerable children, weakened enforcement, arguing that funding reductions could directly endanger workers. At its core, this exchange reflects a broader philosophical divide: is worker safety best ensured through expanded federal enforcement capacity, or through targeted, efficient governance with tighter fiscal control? Rather than just a clash of personalities, it's a clash of governing approaches: expansion versus streamlining, precaution versus cost control. What do you think leads to better outcomes, more inspectors or more efficient systems?